Thank you very much. A moment ago, you said, out of respect for the speaker, to keep your cameras off. And I promise I respect everybody, regardless of whether or not their camera is on or off. I'm unfortunately having some technical difficulties. It's the corporate restrictions that are set forth by Allianz, which doesn't allow us to use a lot of platforms outside of WebEx. So I'm going to continue in audio only, and if I'm able to get the camera going, if I get that permission, we'll do it. I guess we can treat it like who remembers Clubhouse? That was like super popular about a year ago, and I don't hear about it anymore, but consider this a Clubhouse session until I get that all sorted out. So Anna and I met about, I think it was the beginning of 2021. It was either February, March, and when I look back at that time frame, I personally was going through a very, very difficult phase in my life, a very dark one actually. And I'm going to rewind a little bit just to put it into a bit of context. So I started my insurance career here in Germany in November of 2019. I've been in the industry for 16 years. And in arriving to Berlin, I had no network whatsoever, no customers, no partners, no centers of influence, absolutely nothing. So, I had to figure out ways where I could connect with others, develop myself, and push my business initiatives. So, things were going great, things were on track. And Mike Tyson really, really said it the best. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And August 7th of 2020 is when I received probably the hardest punch in the face that I've ever received in my life. And I was at home. We had guests over. We were hanging out, having dinner, drinking wine. It was a beautiful summer day. And I heard my phone ringing. I initially ignored it because I just wanted to enjoy the company that we had over. Phone kept on ringing, went to it and saw that it was my brother calling. And I said, well, if he's calling me back to back, something's up. The conversation was something along the lines of, hey, and I don't remember exactly because I was in a state of shock. Hey, John, Dad's been involved in an accident. I'm on my way to the hospital. Doesn't seem like he's going to make it. Yeah. I mean, that was a punch. What a punch. And, being someone who isn't native to this country, who's not near his family, it's a shock. I mean, it throws you off your tracks in more ways than you can imagine. And for me, it was particularly difficult because, things were going great. Business was starting to pick up. I was forming the network, and then boom, you get hit with something like this, which basically pulls a handbrake on everything that you're doing. So obviously I rushed to the US, spent 2.5 months every day in the hospital with my dad for 12 hours a day, which was the maximum time that was allowed due to the COVID restrictions. And naturally with that, I pretty much stopped working. I mean, I couldn't. I had to figure out how we were going to get Dad back up on his feet. Long story short, thankfully, he was able to recover, the best way that he could in that time period of 6 months where he was first in the hospital, then in a variety of different facilities. And in February, we brought him back home. He was better, but he wasn't himself. And, I had slowly started getting back into work at that point. And the one thing that drove me to do so was my dad. He really wasn't in a responsive state, but knowing the type of person that he is and him being that old school guy from the country, the village boy, if he could talk to me, I know what he would say. He would say, get the fuck back to work, do what you got to do. I'm good. I'll take care of myself. So the conversation that I had with Anna back then was actually one of the first partnerships calls that I was taking after putting myself back to work. And it was an interesting one because, and I don't think I shared this with you, Anna, I was sitting in the room with my dad in his bedroom on the call with you. He was just sort of unresponsive. And here you are talking about this initiative to help, refugees, migrants, immigrants. And here is this man laying in his bed who himself was a refugee. And to this day, I mean, he is the reason why I have such a soft spot for refugees, why I respect refugees so much. And to quickly just share his story, he was born in 1940 in a village in Bulgaria, um, of Turkish background. And growing up back then as a Turkish person in Bulgaria was a bit difficult because there was a communist regime which was essentially oppressing and ethnically cleansing Turkish people. So he had a tremendous amount of difficulties in his life. Grew up again in a village to a poor family, lost his mother at the age of 6. His father went on to remarry 2 times. He was basically left on his own and was raised by aunts and uncles who, sort of cared for him, but never really treated him like their own child. And in true, I guess, immigrant form, one of the things that I see that immigrants cling onto when they're trying to make it is education, right? Back then, especially, that was the ticket out. If you got a good education, you get your life in order. And he did that. I mean, he was an exceptionally well student, wound up being #1 in his high school, wasn't given the valedictorian award because of his ethnic background. Couldn't continue on to college because he didn't have the funds, nor did anyone open the doors for him in order to do so. And at that time, there was compulsory military service. So he was not sent to the military, but unfortunately for people of his background, they were sent to hard labor, forced labor, really. And he spent 3 years of his life in a coal mine pretty much all day, every day. So the one thing that I see with people who are in these sort of extremely challenging situations is they have one commonality, and that's trying to figure out the best way out. How can I get out to figure out a path that'll set me on a road which will better my life or better my family's life? He decided to escape the country, which back then was pretty wild because there was no travel allowed for people, for citizens in and out of the country. And making that decision was life or death, because best case, if you got caught, is you got jailed. Worst case is they never heard from you again. So after much planning and thinking, he boarded a train and had to hide in the ceiling compartment of that train for a period of 9 hours until he was able to cross into Turkey. And let's put this into perspective. This is someone who grew up in a Turkish household, spoke Turkish, but had never been to his country because he wasn't able to go there. And when he boarded that train, he needed help. And that's one of the reasons why I love this initiative, Migrantpreneur, because it's all about helping others. The help that my father needed is he really needed a hand, like literally needed a hand, because he could go up into the ceiling compartment, but he wasn't able to lock the latch, the door that was in the ceiling, so that he can conceal himself. And he found a gentleman who was traveling from, ironically, Germany to Turkey, who was Turkish, and said, "Hey, look, here's the situation. Can you please help me?" And I mean, that in itself is crazy for someone else to do that, because if they got caught, they would be in a lot of trouble. But he did. And when my dad told me that story, that's sort of the point that stuck with me the most, is you need to help others. And the individuals that are part of this initiative, part of this group, certainly need help. And that's why Anna is here. That's why I'm here. But to quickly continue with my dad's story, he wound up in Turkey as a refugee. They jailed him because they thought he was a spy. What a way to enter your mother country, right? You get jailed for a period of 3 weeks. He didn't really see much of a future for himself there. Wound up heading over to Italy as a stone worker for 2 years, still as a refugee. And then a church organization actually reached out to the people living in the refugee camp and said, "Hey, who wants to go to New York?" My dad said, "I want to go to New York." So in November of 1976, he landed in New York as a refugee, and that set the path for him to establish his life, raise his family, and gave me the immense opportunity to be born in a country like the United States. Yes, like Anna said, I am a migrant, but I came here on easy mode. Let's be real. I mean, a US passport holds its weight, and I have not gone through any of the adversities that I can imagine that many of you have gone through. And you need to use that as a superpower. because all of the immigrants, migrants, and refugees that I work and speak with, they have a certain drive that other people don't, because they've already gone through so much. They've already gone through so many challenges, right? And having that really sets you apart. You also need to put yourself into perspective. I mean, people come here, they want to start businesses, they form startups. They have the tendency to start comparing themselves to other people that are located here. And I always tell them, like, stop. You cannot do that because you're different. You really, really are different. Look at where you are, look at where you were, and look what sort of future you're planning for yourself. Not many people can say that. And you need to use that to your advantage. I mean, it's clear, like my dad obviously set the tone for why so helpful to others. I mean, look, I've been in insurance for 16 years. I don't like insurance, believe it or not. I mean, who the hell does? It's just a bunch of words nobody understands on a piece of paper. But what I do love is the diversity of people that I meet and the people that I get to help. And that's what I want to do a little bit today. I mean, I can share my story, what I'm up to, and more importantly, the stories of others, because I learned so much from people who have gone through situations that are way, way more difficult than mine. Many times we deal with people who have fled conflict zones, occupied territories, death. I mean, all sorts of crazy stuff. Also, all sorts of crazy stuff. But again, I think these types of individuals, they have a different drive that certainly others don't. And when we look at some of the major companies in the world, a lot of them were founded by individuals who have this sort of immigrant, migrant, or refugee background. So how does someone who is new to Germany or who hasn't been here for quite some time develop themselves, right? I can talk about what worked for me, and it goes back to what I said earlier, which is networking. I can't stress the importance of networking enough. I think people underestimate it. They don't take it seriously. Maybe they know what it means, but I don't think it's being used the way it should be. And what does that mean? So there's a couple things that you can do that I've done, that people who I work with have done, that have allowed them to expand themselves on a professional and personal level. Guys, the number one thing, I mean, look, and what I'm going to say right now, it's not rocket science, right? Doing it every day and doing it right, that's the real rocket science. And I got that quote about 10 years ago from Harry Singh, who is an Indian immigrant in New York, who also went through all sorts of crazy challenges, came as a taxi driver, bought a gas station, failed 3 times, and now runs this empire, which is, I think last time I checked, his revenues were at 750 million euros a year. So it's not rocket science, but doing it every day, that's where the real rocket science is. So number one, use LinkedIn. I cannot tell you how important this platform is. 99% of the people that I've met, whether they're clients, partners, centers of influence, have come from this platform. I lied, probably 80%. The other 20% came from in-person events. And obviously that was sort of put on hold for a very long period of time due to the pandemic. But prior to the pandemic, I was out there 2-3 times a week in person, meeting people, talking to people, listening to people, and just trying to see, how I can gain knowledge from them and how I can provide value to them. And that's the important part. When you're networking and looking for help, it's good to ask, but everybody asks. I think what works best is giving to receive. What sort of value are you providing these individuals? What information are you giving them? What insights do you have? Because you guys have a lot. I mean, you've been through a lot. You're working on a lot. Everyone has their own niche. Everyone has their own little area of expertise. I mean, you know a lot. What sort of value can you bring to them? What sort of people can you connect them with? Right? Giving to receive is something that people overlook. I have been thankful. I've been fortunate enough, and I'm so thankful enough to have been able to receive so much simply by giving. I'm a connector. I love connecting people. If someone needs help, if I can't help them, I find the right person. If I want to try to get a client, I'm not going to cold call or send emails. I'm going to provide them value. I'm going to give them something that they need first. And I kind of guilt them into working with me. I know that may seem messed up, but the reality is when you give, you will receive. So please keep that in mind when you're networking. Utilizing organizations like Migrapreneur, there's others out there like Two Hearts. There's even more across Germany and Europe. Just being part of the community, exchanging with others, and learning from each other. I mean, that's where the real strength comes. Yeah, you want to work with people who have been here for a while, but also work with others who are new here, who are in a similar situation, because oftentimes they've already been through the challenges that you've been through, right? They have the answers. So please, I mean, strength comes in numbers. I'm a huge proponent of community. You need to utilize the community and make sure that you're taking advantage of all the wonderful people and resources that are available. And sometimes, it's a matter of also just having the right mindset. And I think I said this earlier, it's putting things into perspective. Please remember how far along you have come. Do not get caught in the trap of comparing yourself to others. You only have one competitor in life, and that is you. You're only competing against yourself. I put out news on a weekly basis on LinkedIn about the next round of funding in Berlin. And I myself have even gotten caught up in that mind frame where like, damn, look at all these people getting money all the time. Like, why can't my customers do that? Why can't I do that? Irrelevant. Don't worry about that. I mean, you'll get there. You need to know your purpose. You need to know your why. And I think a lot of founders, they start off with that energy, but then, they get caught up in all sorts of other things. And I know it's not easy to run a business, especially when you receive funding. There's a ton of pressure on you, but you have to remember your why. And for me, again, it's helping people. That's the only reason I've been in this industry for so long. I don't like insurance. It's so boring. It's so dry. It's super complex and confusing. But the satisfaction that I get when I'm able to help people and guide them to understand something so complex, and then they have that peace of mind, I absolutely love it. But what I love more, again, is being that connector and bringing people together and making sure that they have the tools and resources to help them succeed with their efforts. And I don't know how we're doing on time, but I mean, I could talk forever. But I think I think the real value here is going to come as soon as you open up the floor and we exchange with each other. And I'm happy to answer questions, but I'd much rather use this time to sort of have people maybe explain some of the challenges that they're going through with their efforts. And I can almost guarantee someone may have a solution for you or connect you to someone who has a solution. So thanks everybody for listening to me. Obviously, I'm still here for the remainder of the session. And Anna, once again, I appreciate the opportunity and keep on doing what you're doing.
Thank you, John. And thanks for always being the one who's connecting people, because I think it's amazing. 2 things for everyone. Just jump if you want to raise your hand or share here in the chat. I'm sure that I can also read your questions. But use this opportunity, John. And I have one question because we focus a lot, and you focus a lot on the mindset and the things that we should forget about and just stop comparing ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But you work with a lot of startups, especially in Berlin, and you know a lot of founders. What are the typical mistakes we founders commit besides the part of the mindset? Because we are all worried, and I guess that 90% of the people who are in this in this call right now are looking for funding and are looking desperately to get to that. So what are these founders doing right, and what are these founders what we are committing wrongly that perhaps we are not being able to get to that point?
Okay, so for those founders who haven't started yet, I think there's so many of you who have wonderful ideas, but it stops there. You don't execute, right? You really need to push forward. But I'm not going to get into that because it seems like a lot of the individuals here already have started with their initiatives and are now looking for funding, as you said, Anna. So number one is being patient. Everybody wants to get everything like right away. That's not the reality, especially when it comes to funding. It is a process. It takes time. It's not easy. You need to face those facts. It's difficult. It's not for everybody. The other thing that I've started realizing is founders are now, I think, taking a hard look in the mirror and saying, is this something that I really want to do? Meaning, do I really want to go through this process? And that's okay if you're not cut out to be one. Oftentimes people are better as an employee than as a founder. And that's something that you really need to really solidify before you push forward with your efforts. And again, that goes back to your why. Why are you doing this? So be patient. The second thing is, again, understand that it's a process. When I look at the founders we work with, before they receive any funds, they're often going at it for anywhere from 6 to 18 months. So you got to realize you need to put in the work. And as part of putting in the work is connecting with the right people. And obviously you want to talk with individuals and organizations that have funds. So how do you do that? I know a lot of people just typically send out cold emails with their deck. Listen, the reality of something coming out of that is really low. Build your relationships from day one. Even if you're not ready to pitch, start reaching out to VCs. It's as simple as sending a connection request saying, hey, I'm working on something. I just want to increase my exposure in the community. I want to expand my networks, and keep building on that. Because when you talk to these investors, it needs to be a conversation. That's what they want to see. This is the feedback that I get from everybody. It's not about, of course, the numbers in the pitch deck. All that stuff is super important and you need it. But for those who are pre-seed, seed, it's about you. It's about you as an individual. The investors taking a bet on whether you are the person to make this happen. Period. End of story. Understand that. Don't get so caught up in all the other stuff. Again, yes, it's important, but I think a lot of people fall into this trap where they're stuck in analysis paralysis and they just can't get out of it. Just get yourself out there, connect with people, form true relationships, be authentic, and in doing so, you'll circumvent a lot of the mistakes that founders make.
So people, please raise your hand to go orderly, but I think happy to see. I'm watching all of you in the gallery. So Kubirai, there you go. And then Derek.
Yeah, thank you very much, Anna, and thank you, John, for the great presentation. I'm happy to say I'm also linked to John on LinkedIn, and I also follow most of the information that he gives out.
Thank you.
My question is, it's a bit tricky. I'll try and find the right words to use, but yeah. Like myself, coming from an African background and coming to Germany as a refugee in 2016, it's been very difficult to start my business. I mean, in my own country, I was also an entrepreneur. But first of all, when I came here, because I stay in a small, like I said, in a small village, in a small area, the people that have been very helpful in our own life in terms of getting jobs, getting our children over to Germany and all that. But the moment you start talking about business, they don't understand you. That's number one. And even if you go to the job center and talk to them, you say, I've got this vision, I want to start this. The next thing they're going to look for a cleaning job for you. That's typically what's going to happen, and this is a story I've walked and done. So for me to then start my company, I had to enroll in Hamburg, that's like more than 150 kilometers away, with an organization called Lead Hub. They also assist refugees in terms of starting companies. Then after that, I went to Berlin Startup School. I paid for myself to do this. The job center wouldn't even assist me, even though if I was going to do something else, they would have assisted if I was doing the German language, for example. So now you also find it difficult, let's say, to get a loan from the bank. I'll give you an example. Right now, I have, because my refugee status expired and I'm getting my new passport is coming out, my new Ausweis. So when I went to the bank, I wanted money for my company. They said, look, it's expiring in 2-3 months, so we can't give you the money that you want. Then again, I was told by N26, another bank, they told me that, look, because of who you are and your status right now, we cannot be able to give you money. So there's systematic, they're sort of like brick walls at every level. So a young German guy with a vision like myself already has a head start over me in terms of just the way the system is able to accommodate our system. Then you find we're already refugees. So it means our community, it doesn't have a lot of money. and even the support system within your own community. I'll tell you, a lot of my people will actually be saying, why do you want to even do business? Can't you just go to work like everyone else, you know? So I wanted to ask how, maybe if someone has experienced something similar or has gone through something similar, like I'm saying, how do we then, despite all these sort of like brick walls or border posts in the road to achieve where we want to go, what do we need to do more in terms of getting assistance and in terms of building our startups? Thank you. Sorry for the long.
No, all good. You need to demolish those brick walls, right? I mean, I think the first step of solving a problem is identifying the problem, and there's a lot in this country. And I mean, I totally understand what you're saying. I've experienced, maybe not to the degree you have, but I've experienced a lot of problems here purely based on my looks. And there's a lot of other individuals who have as well. And we see this day in and day out. I mean, I have some answers from you, but I think it would be better, and I'll answer it after someone else steps in if they want to. Is there anyone else in the group here who has been through a similar situation and has figured out a
Well,
way
John,
to solve these issues?
I just can jump in and say, well, this is exactly what the work that we've done 6 years ago, where I've met Amir and Firas, essentially, because you guys know me and Hadi for so long, bringing experts, the academia, the government. This is not just a one-person thing. We are all in this together. And there is an unfortunate, for example, I cannot open bank accounts. I mean, every time I go to the lawyer, say like, hey, you need to wait for me because I can only open the Sparkasse. I cannot have access to a digital one. Murtuza the other day. So it's we're all in the same pot, right? So this is the reason why Migrapreneur exists, because there is a distinct fact for many of us and those who were born in certain countries, right? We go through hurdles that not everybody goes through. And of course, at the end of the day, when you have a new founder worrying about investment, we're worrying about that investment and the rest of the things. But I just want to highlight something, Kubita, and I think that we can discuss on that in another moment, because the discussion is there. Today in the morning, for example, I had a meeting with a presentation with the European Commission on the Discrimination Committee, whatever. This is a conversation that it's for years, and there's a lot of things that are not going to change. But I'm going to highlight what John said. Get rid of these barriers. I had to get rid of these barriers, and I'm building a solution for that myself. In the UK, there's many people, actually I know many people also with Somalian background, refugee background, who are building their own banks, because banks, so this is something that we have around the world. It's not easy. But the only way, and then I moved to Derek because I know that he has his hand raised, and we had a long conversation last week about that. We can continue talking about it ourselves, or we raise our voices together, use these communities, as John said, or build the solutions ourselves. Derek, you wanted to answer, to ask some questions, to share something, so John can do a final wrap up.
Yeah, and I just want to quickly add to that, my friend, there's a ton of difficulties here. If we wait for government organizations to solve those problems, we'll be here forever. So like Anna said, I mean, we really need to take steps to handle it ourselves. So what I can recommend specifically for you is to search outside of the areas where you're having trouble. So we're fortunate enough to be here in Europe, where there's a ton of resources available to us through other countries, whether it be investors, accelerators, mentors. I mean, sometimes we need to take a step outside of where we're located to find those solutions. I'm also seeing a lot of initiatives such as Vision Lab by Early Bird that's focusing on individuals who have a background such as yours. There's more and more each day. In the UK, there's a lot. And Anna, I told you this, and I might as well say it in front of everybody now. In the works of connecting another fund to Migrapreneur that focuses solely on underrepresented founders. So there are resources out there. And again, going back to the mindset thing, it's a matter of thinking in solutions, not problems. I think if we all sat and talked about the problems that we face, we'd talk for weeks on end. I mean, there's so much that we all have to go through here, but I mean, feel free to reach out to Anna, feel free to reach out to me if you have any specific things that you're looking for, and I'm always happy to tap into my network and connect you to the right people.
Absolutely. Derek, and then Shelly, you wanted to share something.
Yes. Hopefully you can hear me clearly without any background noise.
We do. Perfect. Don't worry.
Perfect. So okay. So with regards to what Kumbirai said on a bureaucracy level, yeah, there's a lot of things that we can't really change, and we can still kind of follow our own processes and not let it get us down. However, what I want to point out is what we can change, and that's what something John mentioned, and he's like, and you, John, you said that VCs and investors are taking a chance on us, but it's actually should also majority of it I feel should be the other way around, because I've noticed a lot of these VCs also just pushing to meet the diversity and inclusion clause rather than also really just focusing on it. And I'm sure you know it as someone who's from Allianz, which is one corporation that also has a lot of red tape and that has a lot of background behind it as well, of actually doing such tactics as well before. So that's why I'm wondering that, and that's why I actually appreciate when such as like Two Hearts, Migrapreneurs and so on, because of the fact that they actually really bring everything together. Like, it's fine, we have to go through the system anyway, we still got to deal with this. It's like my dad always used to say, you know, you at their house, so make sure you play by their rules, you know what I mean? So all we can do is just learn what we can and bring it back to where we can bring it back to the community and really open those doors. But the point that I want to mention is that, or the question I would say rather would be like, why shouldn't founders nowadays, because I see not a lot of founders really think about it, why shouldn't founders really also think about, okay, cool, I'm desperate for money, but maybe I should also be really, really picky on the VCs, and maybe I should also look within my community first within VCs to see where I can really get that help, because I constantly hear VCs are taking a chance on us, but not the other way around.
100%. By default, you should be picky with who you work with when you receive money, because essentially, especially early stage, you're pretty much bringing on a co-founder, and they should act like a co-founder. And would you want to work with someone who you're not aligned with, right? There's a ton of money out there. There's a ton of people giving out money. And yes, you should be selective in who you're partnering up with, because it's not just about the money. Obviously, you need that, but you need someone with skin in the game that's aligned with your philosophies and what you're trying to do as a business. So that's a very valid point. I mean, go out there, find the ones that, and you're only going to find this out through having these conversations, by building these relationships. And yes, there are those who are focused on underrepresented founders and founders of certain backgrounds. Start there, because they're the ones that are the most open. Yeah, most of them are traditional. Unfortunately, it's the same in the corporate world with insurance. There's a certain type of character that leads the initiatives and companies. So get around all that by, number one, going to those who want to work with you and being picky who you want to work with. I mean, that's super, super important.
Focus on what John said earlier. Use that superpower, because sometimes our differences and our struggles can become our pain point and our superpower among anyone else. Focus on that.
It is.
I'm
Look,
sure.
I don't speak good German. My German is absolute crap. I can see that as a weakness, or I can turn that upside down on its head and say, I speak pretty damn good English. Why don't I focus on a community who understands me in this language? And that's what I've been doing. So yeah, find your superpower and just double down on it.
I'm just going to share an anecdote, and then we move with Shaili. Yesterday, I had a meeting with an investor. I mean, because we're in the moment of pitching for a platform that we're building. And then this investor made me a question. And then at the end, I said, of course, everyone is desperate. Everybody's pitching these days, right? So at the end, I said, well, ultimately, we are looking for investors who don't see diversity and inclusion as a trend, but who believes and give us a chance to ask the ones who are in front of you. Because if you don't, and if you believe that we fulfill a category, we would tell you, please, thank you very much, but don't give us the money. And that moment, their faces turn on with so much joy that they said, wow, that's an amazing answer, because you basically make them see that at the end, you are the one who are selecting them, not the other way around. That's the key. And this is the moment when they know, you know your thing. You know your shit. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. So, Shaili, there you go.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity to ask a question. Hey, John, Shaili here. For sharing your story and your dad's story, very inspiring. Coming to my question, I'll set up a little brief context so that then I can get into the question. So context is, my brand is in Smells Like Polyspirit. It's in this industry that I can categorize as education plus entertainment. It's called edutainment. in the dance space, dance services, teaching, performing, and yeah, that category basically. And since a year, I have bootstrapped it myself with my whatever savings, etc. And especially since I was new to Germany, to do also market research on, what's the awareness of Indian dance forms if they want to learn, etc. So that's the context of it. And now after a year, I find it that I need some funding, especially since it's primarily first going to be a local physical business in Berlin. And because it's a physical setup, I want to build a dance school. So coming to my question is, I'm overwhelmed. I've been researching on the funding options. And when I talk to creatives on the creative side of things, musicians, artists, and dancers, and what the answers I get is the help is, oh, why don't you apply for fundings? But when I see those fundings, as far as my limited knowledge so far, those fundings are projects, dance project, performance projects. But what I'm really looking for is funding for a startup, in the creative space, where when I go to look for that, I've talked to a bank also, and they said, oh, yours is not a tech startup. And I'm like, so I'm like, so what? I'm still trying to figure out like which path should I take in terms of the funding. Should I go ahead? And it was great. Actually, I was very inspired and overjoyed when I saw so many opportunities by the Berlin Senate and the European Senate for funding opportunities in the creative space. It blew my mind. But I was like, do I spend my time right now applying for those fundings, or should I actually look for a startup loan? Because it's a capital intensive thing, which I need. I want a physical dance school studio, and I need funding for that to find a space in Berlin right now with all the things going on. So that's my question. If you could throw some light or point me in some direction to go for.
Well, Ellie's here from Early Bird. Maybe she can provide a perspective from the investor side of things. But
she just left, but
okay.
She left also the link to the Early Bird, because that's the thing, Shalit. I mean, yes, you're right. Most of the public funding, I would not recommend an early entrepreneur or an early business ever to get public funding, because it's too bureaucratic, it's too dense, and most likely you will have to use your personal resources to cope with what it takes, the project funding. So please don't do that. Nevertheless, again, within the community, when you have these questions, raise it on the community. I mean, for example, Emal is one who has a lot of experience in funding out there. Probably I'm speaking generally, but maybe Emal, as always, he always finds amazing funding that perhaps might be more suitable for that. And I agree with him. The idea of the dance school is an amazing idea. And regarding for the investor sides, unfortunately, and this is something that I can tell you, and Firas as well, if you can also jump in and weigh in, because you have a lot of experience raising funds as well and dealing with a lot of investors. Unfortunately, investment in a way understands better the tech industry.
Yeah, right? It's definitely more towards tech. But here's what you can do, and maybe you've already done this. I don't know exactly your background, but get involved in the arts community, the culture community, and just start talking with people, because you will come across someone who has knowledge on this, and it could quite be a situation where it doesn't exist. I mean, that's also another reality that we need to understand. Not everything that we want is available out there. I unfortunately don't have enough information about the specific space that you're in. But if you pose that question in the Slack group, there's a possibility somebody could answer that there. And now that I know you and your story, if I do come across something like that, I'm happy to reach out and provide those resources. And maybe someone in here has an answer. I don't know. Does anybody have any?
Yeah, Shaili, I just wanted to jump in. I just wanted to jump in quickly. Like, I'm based in Stuttgart, but we do have programs like this. We do organize programs for startups who are like in the culture and arts and stuff business. I don't know the prospects of funding, but I know that we have a small like incubator program. But you were specifically looking for funding, right?
Yeah. And yes, thank you. But I will check it out and send you a request on LinkedIn. And thank you, John. Yes, that's what I've been trying to network like a lot with artists and in this art and culture space and over here to better
Shaili,
my understanding.
Sorry for interrupting. You are in the Slack, right?
I'm not. I just caught on that and noted it for myself too. Yeah, okay. I'm not because on this.
because we're always posting that, and the things that I've seen here in the chat, I will make sure to post it there as well. Not that the Slack is a very unique, like a private community, we can also share it on LinkedIn, but it's because sometimes it's better to get to know what are the work that we're doing, and sometimes we connect with people which already knows what's the funding purposes for that, right? That's what we're doing here. That's why we do this community online events, so we get to know what the business that you are doing, and connect you with funding and so on. And on the Slack channel, there's a channel particularly called Funding and Investment. So we always share news, and I encourage everyone that when you find funding opportunities and so on, please share it. For the investment side, Firas, would you like to share something about the investment side? What have you learned, and what do you think it's the trend right now? And then later we go with Junos, and we end right there, unless somebody wants to say something at the end, because this is meant to be 1 hour lunch, and be conscious of our old times, because I know we're all super busy. Firas.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. Ismail, I'm not sure if I followed up on all the topics you mentioned regarding to investment. From my point of view, I don't think it encourages founders to raise money in general in Germany. I have bad experiences, I would say, in general. Most of our fundraising happened from outside Germany. I live in Berlin. I came here with the ambition of engineering, manufacturing, etc. And I realized that not only the fact what is my background is, hopefully there's no much background noise, but also the fact that the type of business we're doing, I understand that this is very hard, the type of business, deep tech, hardware, production, all this type of stuff is usually hard to put money into. But and adding on top of that, my background as a refugee and foreigner, it makes it much, much harder. Actually, a lot of people told me that this is the reason why you're not able to raise as well. And I tend to always ignore it because if I put that barrier that I am a foreigner, I cannot raise, then what's the point doing that, right? So I really needed to continue ignoring that fact to make myself convinced that, hey, I just have a difficult business case. But the reality is I do know that when you're in a fundraising process, I mean, it's part of like the German culture in general is a bit conservative in general. So when you try to raise money on a startup, you gotta build trust, and that trust, it's really start like. I'm curious about the Gorilla, for example, the Gorilla case. Maybe Jean, you know a bit about that, given the he's a Turkish background, the founder as well.
Yeah, I know him well, and he started 2 blocks away from my house. Unfortunately, we were going to work together, but my dad's situation happened. But I know that initiative and con.
Yeah, I also know him, but his network is very. It's a different one. He was already he was already involved with the rocket internet, and he was running the investment side.
Yeah, so
he had already done that.
He was at an event.
What I would say.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I know he's an insider in terms of like knowing the industry. He's being at rocket internet, and that definitely goes back to the exact same point. Whether you're super well connected in Berlin or in the ecosystem of Germany, and you know a lot of people, from starting really from the very, very early stage, when you have your first angel, as you say, you're marrying to these people, and those people get to the right introductions to your Series A VCs. That's really how it works. Or you're inside a VC who you know all the people, even before you even like register your GmbH company, you already closed the investment. I think you know what I mean. So that's really my view. Fortunately, I do have a pessimistic view on raising because 99% of our fundraising happened outside Germany, which I tried a lot. I really tried a lot to raise in Germany, and it just didn't work for me. So we continue to raise outside. And right now we're raising from Europe and USA mainly.
Yeah. And I want to add one thing to that, just 1 minute real quick, because it's really, really important. As I mentioned before, sometimes we need to look outside of where we're physically located. And the investment mindset here in Germany is very, very different than, for example, the US. And it has nothing to do with our backgrounds. It's just the way they're set up here. It's way more conservative. They're going to look at every single little thing. This is just the reality of the situation. And you have to seek funding elsewhere if your thoughts are not aligned. As a matter of fact, the founder of Early Bird, it was about a year and a half ago, I was in on a meeting which was about the differences in mindsets between US investors and German investors. And he himself is a German investor and basically shat all over the German investors saying, you guys are way too conservative, you're missing on opportunities. So the point here is sometimes we need to look outside of where we're located, but at the same time, utilize the people that are here who can help us get to those connections.
Exactly. And draw strategies. Remember, Furious, last time we said we're gonna go on a road trip to the USA. You know, even the founder of Canva, do you know Canva, the one from Australia? She also was fighting against the conservatism in Australia to raise funds, and she took an airplane. She left to the Silicon Valley, and she came back with the first investment. So sometimes we need to go that extra mile. But I know that depending on our backgrounds, I know that it sounds easy, but I know that it's very difficult. Junus and Hadi, and with that, John, if we have a final wrap up, that will be amazing because we have I want to be conscious with our times every month. We can see each other every month anyway.
Yeah. So again, do you want me to wrap up or do we have another question?
No, Junus and Hadi quickly,
okay,
and then you, John, maybe you can answer all the questions at the end.
Yeah, thank you very much for the speech also, and also the inspiring questions, and that's really very, very good. I learned a lot already. John, your story is very inspiring. I see a lot of similarities. My parents also came to Germany out of sheer poverty, having nothing to eat, and faced all the hardships that was also described. Now, as I studied here in Germany, we are in a very much materially better position. So my question is, you talked about analysis paralysis and using this migrant background as a superpower, but is that really an automatic sign that you are entrepreneurial material, to put it that way?
No.
And how do I know? How do I know that I am not entrepreneur material? Because everybody in my surrounding thinks about or dreams about building a business, including me, thinks a lot about it. Oh, let's do an app, you know, the classical thing there. And so I want to know, I mean, am I really entrepreneurial material or not? And if not, I shouldn't waste my lifetime here, you know, and fail at the end. So
exactly.
Do you have any idea how do I know that I'm not?
Thank you so much for bringing this up. Thank you so much for bringing this up, because I think a lot of people want to be a founder for that title. It's like the cool thing to do. They see the millions that are being thrown at companies and they think they can do it themselves. And the reality is it's not for everybody, period, end of sentence. And you need to realize that. How do you realize that? Why are you doing it? Are you truly solving a problem? Do you really have a purpose? Or are you doing it for the money, the fame, to get quoted in a tech article or this and that? And that only comes through being self-aware and understanding what it is that you want to do with your efforts. And having a migrant background doesn't automatically mean that you're going to be a successful entrepreneur. Definitely not. But if you have the mindset and you have the true purpose and you're aligned with all of those, being a migrant does give you an extra added benefit because you know how to overcome challenges. You've been through those adversities. And that's something that you will face as an entrepreneur. It's not easy. It's super duper hard. You're always going to have obstacles. You're always going to have difficulties. You're always going to be putting out fires. And, you know, if your purpose isn't there, you're not going to successfully implement it, period, end of story.
Yeah, maybe just another question concerning networking. I appreciate that you just mentioned it, really being the most important thing in your entrepreneurial quests. But how do I do networking? I mean, in times of internet, there's so many offers.
LinkedIn.
Where LinkedIn is the best way to go, you say? Or
LinkedIn,
you're doing networking right now.
Exactly. Get on LinkedIn, because
that's the thing.
Listen, LinkedIn is the biggest reach. I don't know what you do, but it seems like you are knowledge in some area. Use that information, relay, develop yourself as a personal brand. Do it every single day. Be patient, and I promise you it'll come back. I didn't get any traction until like 4 or 6 months later, like nothing. But as time goes on, as you connect with people, as your organic impressions and reach keeps on going up, you will. Use networks like Migrapreneur. Go to events, talk to other people, talk to your peers, talk to everybody and anybody. I promise you, even if it doesn't make sense at that day in some way, shape, or form, it comes back to you. The amount of meaningless, which I thought were meaningless at that time, conversations that I had, which turned out to be business deals and connections to partners that I couldn't dream of, it's out there. You just need, it's a numbers game. You just need to be out there. That's it. It's the Nike method. Just do it. That's it. Let's not get caught up in how I do it. Start. I didn't know how to post. I didn't know what information resonate. I still don't have it figured out. Nobody does. And anybody who says that they have it figured out, they're lying. They're full of shit. Nobody knows what they're doing. I know some millionaires and billionaires that have told me, I don't know how I got to the position I did. I just did it. I just executed. So, don't get so hung up on things. Do it, put yourself out there, and eventually you'll find your path.
Hadi, and then with that, we end with John.
Thank you, Anna, for this nice, really inspiring event. And thank you, John, for this speech. I don't have a question, but I would like to ask Anna if it's possible to community to support me for election in IHICA as a first Arabic background migrant candidate. So can I spread this for in community?
Absolutely. I actually received the letters yesterday, and my husband just said, there's no migrant there, so you don't want to vote. Do it.
So I'm the only one who's candidate there. Then maybe I can speak to the community and ask them for support if it's possible. No?
You have an entire community rooting for you because we need you in the IHICA. We do.
Hopefully we can reach our sound there and in Parliament and speak about our problems as well. This can help.
That's how we make changes, Kumbila. That's exactly how we need to network with those who are gonna get there. Hadi, all the support, make sure to share it everywhere.
Thank you very much again, John, and yeah, see you soon.
John, wrap it up.
Wrap it up. I'll keep it short and sweet. Be kind to one another, support each other. That's the only way we'll grow as a community and continue to stay in touch with one another. Thank you everybody so much. And I'm reachable on LinkedIn. Please feel free to send me a message if you have any specific questions. And I wish you all the best with your efforts.
Thank you so much to everybody. We see you, in a regular basis, because we know, especially the ones who are in Berlin, that we get to see each other from some time to time, and to get a coffee. Visit us on Wednesday at the office. And join the Slack, join the community, because this is where a lot of things are happening. And if you don't share, nobody knows that you are struggling with or that you need help with something, because you will never know who's listening to you. So that's the best thing that I can get today from John. And John, once again, thank you so much. You will have a lot of requests on LinkedIn. I'll make sure that your LinkedIn it's shared across the Slack. And go network. Thank you so much for joining. I need to leave. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Bye.